maybe that idea of what Hawthorne presents about the romance is just what I love about the conference experience. Like why I'm so
Mm.
happy we're all sitting here is like hearing you describe this and knowing that everyone out there is now like jotting down notes, or they're like, oh, I need to read it from that kind of lens, or oh, I didn't think about bacteria in Poe stories, or I'm a Margaret Atwood fan, kind of like Jess's love of Philip K. Dick. I wonder if there's like Handmaid's Tale themes that I can find in Poe. Or,
Mm.
I love the art of dueling. Like, oh, I, never thought like you could do a deep dive, right? These are all deep dives. And I sometimes just wonder, okay, what's next after the presentation? Like, why I'm so happy we're here, because now, is that spooky or what? Well, this episode is called The Haunting of Edgar Allan Poe. So, what did you all expect? This is such an exciting episode that you all are about to listen to. I met all of the guests today from the International Edgar Allan Poe conference. So, shout out to the um, Edgar Allan Poe conference and to all who organized that. It took place in Boston, which you'll hear about. And I feel like right now, with Halloween approaching, being at the Omni Hotel in Boston, Commons area, would be quite spooky. It has that 1800s history. So a little frightening. Maybe there might be some ghosts in the Omni Hotel. Okay. Well, before you all hear this exciting haunting Edgar Allan Poe episode, just a few reminders. There are 2 live events happening with the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. First, on October 29th at 7 p.m., we have our first ever Halloween party. It is a Halloween literature party happening at Pen and Brush in Chelsea, Manhattan. So go to our show notes and you'll see a link to get your tickets. Please come dressed as your favorite literary character, maybe a Poe character, maybe Edgar Allan Poe himself. That'd be fun to have some, representation of Poe at the party. There's going to be book giveaways, merchandise giveaways. We're going to be playing literary games. Food is provided, Halloween cocktails. Even there's going to be an art gallery scavenger hunt because our party is in an art gallery. Pen and Brush is just such an empowering space for queer and female artists. Can't wait to see you all there. Again, that's October 29th at 7 p.m. And then there is the first ever Real Housewives trivia game night on Long Island. The first ever Long Island Real Housewives trivia game night. I'm so honored to be hosting it. It's happening in Port Jefferson in my hometown here, at Burrito, which is a really wonderful restaurant. The vibe's great. The cocktails are great. There's going to be $5 margarita specials and other drink specials. The food is excellent. It is excellent Mexican food. So I can't wait to see you all there. And also I'm hosting it with Skin Med Spa. Shout out to Lauren, the owner of Skin Med Spa, where I get my monthly facial treatments, and also maybe some other treatments, but I'm not going to reveal them all to you right now. So yeah, that's happening on November 3rd, which is a Thursday at 7 p.m. Also, we like to have our events start at 7 p.m. So there's a link to how to register in our show notes for that. So if you're on Long Island, if you're a listener on Long Island or New York City, and you want to come out to the Real Housewives Trivia Night, November 3rd at 7 p.m. at Burrito. Okay, so thank you to all of the new listeners. There's been so many new listeners, and I appreciate all of you. I love when you direct message us your feedback, your comments, when you interact with us on social media. It means so much. So thank you all. So please remember to follow us at our Instagram and our TikTok at Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and on our Twitter at Ivory Boiler Room. So again, please direct message us. I love responding to all of your feedback. I'm Andrew Rimby, if you don't know, but it means so much having started this podcast 2 years and now like 2 years and a month. So thank you all for doing that. Also follow Mary's True Crime in Academia Instagram at True Crime in Academia, and she has a Twitter too, and a TikTok. So yes, thank you all. I just wanted to express my appreciation. Okay. Bye, everyone. And here is The Haunting of Edgar Allan Poe. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the fall 2022 Ivory Tower Boiler Room episodes. It is getting near Halloween, and I'm going to have a suspension of disbelief here because we're in September recording, I always try to give a little behind the scenes here, but pretend it's Halloween and it's now fall, and everything that you see is Edgar Allan Poe related. So
Ooh,
Poe in the
spooky.
background. Yes. I have an exciting group of panelists, roundtable. We're going to stick with more of a general terminology. I'll just call us Poe enthusiasts, American literature enthusiasts, and we're just literary enthusiasts in general. So this is a group I met in April, which seems like it was close, like not that far away, but I can't believe it's now been 6 months, basically, when this comes out. So I am here with Ashley, Jess, and Maria, who I befriended, met. We became, I don't know, our own kind of Poe collective at this conference. So we'll talk more about the conference. It's called the International Poe Conference, and it was the fifth international, from what I remember. And we're kind of going to just retrace and take you into the Omni Hotel where this conference happened, which I think in the fall definitely has to be a spooky gothic hotel. I kind of want to be there right now. But I just want each of them to introduce themselves. You can hear their voices. That way you can distinguish who's talking. So I'm going to start with Ashley. Just, give the audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I am Ashley Kniss, and I'm an assistant professor and writing coordinator at Stevenson University in Owings Mills, Maryland. My specialization, originally my dissertation was on the Gothic apocalypse in the 19th century writing, and I focused on Poe, Hawthorne, and Dickinson. These days, I'm doing more work with within the environmental humanities. So I work a lot with the same authors, mostly Poe these days. But yeah, my scholarship focuses more on Poe's treatment of the environment, the more than human, eco-horror, and that kind of thing.
Oh, so exciting. Okay, many questions there, but also Ashley has a really amazing Poe poster. Also, I'm wearing my Poe Takes Boston shirt, so that's a plug to watch our video interview. Ivory Tower Boiler Room Cafe Patreon. Okay.
Ooh.
I have to do my publicity, but we also have teasers on our social media of pictures. So look at these pictures. Okay. So Jess, a little bit about yourself.
Hi, my name's Jess Flarity. I am a fourth year PhD candidate in literature at the University of New Hampshire. Right now, I'm just about to defend my prospectus. So I'm getting my dissertation stuff ready to go. And right now, my dissertation is called The Splintered Man, Fracturing and Reforming Masculinities in 20th Century Fiction.
Ooh.
And even though I presented on Poe at the conference, I like to think of him as one of the original splintered men.
I like that. Oh, the Splintered Man. So we have some like eco horror. We have 20th century fiction. So yeah, we're kind of going already outside of traditional quote unquote academia. So we'll get into that. And then Maria, last but not least. Hi, Maria.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Ishikawa, and I'm also a PhD student at University of Massachusetts Amherst. Yeah, and right now I'm writing my dissertation on the unknowable. Sounds cool, right? Whatever that could be. So by the unknowable, I mean things that are kind of suppressed from us, from ourselves, or a person in front of you whom you cannot really understand or you cannot have access to. And yeah, so apart from the dusty world of books, 19th century books, I really enjoy doing photography. So during the pandemic, I picked up so many hobbies, watercolors, camping, Bollywood dancing, everything. But photography was the only one stuck with me through the pandemic. So yeah, that's what I do.
And Maria took amazing photos of the Poe conference. I just remember, do you remember, Maria? We were like somewhere in historic Boston, like, I know.
Yeah.
We were like jumping at the Poe statue. That
right. Yeah.
And I feel like now it was spring. It was a little chilly, I remember.
It was very chilly.
Yeah, you're right. Very chilly.
Yeah.
And but I do imagine like now the leaves have turned crisp. It's just so scenic. I mean, the Northeast in the fall, I love it. This is why I do love California, but I couldn't see myself there because you don't get that change of season. Okay, bye. So back to just the conference itself. Did you think you would be going to an author-only conference? So like for everyone out there, this was an Edgar Allan Poe specific conference. And sometimes as literary scholars, and other disciplines have this too. Like we would have the Modern Language Association is like our biggest conference, or the Northeast Modern Language Association. And then every American area has their own MLA breakdown. So like we would be encountering all authors, all periods, more theories. But here it was everything had to be at least centered on Poe or not. I don't know. Do we think how did that break maybe affirm your expectations of a Poe only conference, or did it break your expectations? So I'll just, go around. Anyone who wants to start off with that.
Ashley's got the Poe poster, so you should go.
Yeah.
I mean, this was not my first single author conference, but it's been a while since I went to a single author conference. The other one I did was Hawthorne. And in some ways, I mean, reflecting back on it, I thought it's really nice to be able to like geek out with fellow Poe nerds about like this one author. And we've like, everybody's read the entire corpus and the letters and the reviews and all the things. And that's really nice. But I also, I find it's not practical for young scholars to specialize in that way anymore. We are all like multiple author dissertations. We have to, we're bringing in, multiple kinds of like interdisciplinary theory into our dissertations often.
Intersectionalism.
Yeah, in our scholarly works. And so, I'm sort of torn. Like on one hand, this was a really fun, geeky thing to do. And I mean geeky in the best way possible. On the other hand, it felt a little impractical. Not that I didn't learn a ton and networked and did all the fun things that you do at conferences, but yeah, I would love to specialize in just Poe. It's just not a practical option anymore in academia for young folks.
No, I love that. And like, I then in June went to a queer studies conference, and it was like that complete opposite experience where it was not like I was only one of a few literary scholars. And I was talking about Whitman and Wilde and the definition of homosexuality and how it came in Victorian sexology with John Addington Symonds. But it was very exciting because there was like social media influencers that do queer art. There was a lot of public humanities, sociologists, anthropologists, historians. And I feel like here, almost everyone was literary based, or at least expected that you would have trained as a literary scholar. And I guess the ones who I gravitated towards, though, was like the Poe Museum and like the actual Poe organizations that are more public facing. So they existed there, but I'm kind of curious, do you think that the public was addressed a lot in the conference, or was it kind of sequestered to the side?
Yeah, I've also done, like, actually one other author-specific conference, and that was Philip K. Dick, who is who I presented on. I compared Edgar Allan Poe and Philip K. Dick, and I met one other Philip K. Dick guy at the conference, which was great. He was the only one, because everyone else seemed to know so much about Poe. It was almost like they were competing in the Poe Olympics, right? Where there were people who not only knew where Poe was like every single month of his life, but really down to the day. Like they could like tell you the whole timeline of Poe's whole life. And for me, that's just like a little too much Poe. So
Well, I think we're talking about, he is the Poe encyclopedia, Jeffrey Savoy. And I respected, and I think we could talk about that. So I know, Ashley, we had gotten into a conversation. This is also the audience an exercise in like psychoanalysis of like trying to trace back to the moments. But I remember talking to you about that Hawthorne experience of that conference you went to. And like you said, the Poe scholars, it was a very much more comfortable feeling. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I remember you kind of touching upon that.
Yeah, like I think that the Poe scholars were extremely welcoming, and very friendly. And it was also like an exercise in like my dissertation bibliography. It's like dissertation bibliography bingo. Like, oh, there's Jeffrey Savoy, and like you can just like check, like these are all these people that I've been reading forever. And they were very, even like the famous people were very welcoming and kind. And I have to say, at the Hawthorne conference, I was a much younger, less confident scholar. And I was not confident about that chapter, the Hawthorne chapter in my dissertation. And so I think that part of, the difference in my experience there was a lot of it had to do with my own confidence level. And it just, it was just a very different sort of flavor. I do think that the Poe folks really did a good job of making everybody feel like they belonged.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Maria, like, was this your first author specific conference?
Well, actually, I've been to another one, which is Emily Dickinson International Society. Yeah, I'm a fan of the conference. It's really tiny. I think compared to Poe, I don't know, but it's really like family size, if I can call it. Small size conference, and it takes place in Amherst, of course. And it, entails tours to Emily Dickinson's house and everything. So it's a little bit similar to Poe conference, and I really loved that. And yeah, I kind of agree with all the points already raised. Like in terms of practicality, like single author conference is not really what we can kind of take something that is really implementable in our dissertation or book, writing. I think, but one of the things I like about this tiny one single author conference is that I feel like we can see how different kinds of lenses or methodologies could be applied to one text or one person. It's like a showcase for that kind of activities or like possibilities. And I saw somebody talking about like fungus.
That's Ashley's the mushroom.
That was Ashley. Oh my god!
Ashley's, yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. Sorry, I didn't realize.
Yeah, but Poe and fungus, like
yes, right.
Usher.
And somebody's somebody's talking
with
about
Usher and the bacteria. Okay.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really loved it.
I totally agree with Maria. It's almost like looking at like a prism or a crystal with all these different, like every single theory you can imagine is being applied to one person.
I know, yeah. And every single part is kind of speaking to each other too in the space. That's like really cool thing to happen and see.
No, and you're right. It's like Jess, you're kind of doing a lot of reception type work or thematic work, like how authors speak to each other. I remember my undergrad professor, John Cullen Gruser, was doing Stephen King and Poe. So like definitely I think there was a lot of reception studies, which is just how authors
Mhm.
receive each other for the public out there. I don't
Yeah.
want to use a lot of terminology, but like even Ashley with eco-criticism, um,
Mhm.
right? Like how would you explain that, like that type of work to the public?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. So, I mean, eco-criticism is just looking at the intersection between like the environmental humanities and literature. And so it's incredibly interdisciplinary. In my own work, and I focus on horror, so eco horror is like my niche. But I'm bringing in, like, I was going through and reading scientific, like legit scientific articles that I understand like 50% of, but their introductions and their abstracts are real helpful. But I'm bringing in like biology articles about plant sentience, which is like an actual rigorous field of study. It's not just woo-woo. And so I was looking at that and applying some of those ideas to what I believe Poe is anticipating about plant sentience, and just in 19th century thought, there were ideas about plant sentience and agency and awareness and that sort of thing. So yeah, I was applying biological works scholarship to Poe. But there's lots of different things that you can do in eco-criticism. I mean, anybody who studies Thoreau and, transcendentalism, or Emerson and their conceptions of nature, they're actually getting a lot of criticism these days for being ecophilic instead. And, in eco horror, it's all about like ecophobic, like fear of nature.
Okay.
But yeah, with Hawthorne, or not Hawthorne, but with Emerson and Thoreau, it's more like this vampiric love, like taking advantage of or exploiting nature with a capital N. So I don't know, like that's like a super like surface level, just like dipping your toe in into
Yeah.
eco-criticism. But those are some examples.
But I love what you did with The Fall of the House of Usher. Like, even everyone who reads The Fall of the House of Usher, which if you haven't, read it or listen to it, there's some amazing free audiobooks on Audible, search Poe. And just the Tarn and like, what's this atmospheric gas? Like, is it actually poisonous gas? Is the narrator hallucinating, right? Because of the gas. It kind of reminds me of like the ancient Greek oracle, like the Sibyl, who apparently was like ingesting gas, and that's why she could foretell the wars. With even like the Trojan War, that happens with Homer. But so I love that. Like Ashley, you can bring, like, you brought that to bear, and then like Jess, like you were talking. Can you speak more about what you were doing with Philip K. Dick and Poe?
Yeah, my paper was titled Haunted by a Dead Woman, and it was comparing how both authors use a lot of like dead or dying female characters in their works. And I did like a mixture of feminist theory and masculinity theory, sort of talking about how during the time of Poe's life, the dying woman figure was very common, right? Because of the time period in which women would have diseases that they didn't know how to cure, and they would die. And Poe had several tragic losses in his life, and so he turned those into a sort of a commercialization, right? Because society, there's, as he's quoted as saying, there's nothing more poetic than a dying beautiful woman.
Mm.
And we see that sort of continued into the modern day with the slasher movie, right, where the young teenage girl is also similarly killed. So it's interesting to see that he sort of anticipated that in the 1840s.
Yeah. Well, and even like a figure like Marilyn Monroe. I mean, we're about to, or actually, we've had the movie Blonde come out on Netflix, and I feel like this tragic woman, the artist, um, you're right, Jess. But again, this is so interesting that you brought that to bear, and I'm like thinking of Shirley Jackson, and I want to
Mm-hmm.
rewatch The Haunting of Hill House. I thought that was an amazing series. And I need to get through her novel, but I was obsessed with what they did with the new series. If you haven't seen it, okay, it seems like a few of you have seen it. I don't know, that reflection on grief and the flashbacks and the hallucinations. I don't know. I've never seen something as gothic. done in such a psychological way. But oh, I love Halloween.
It's
Okay.
October.
I know. I'm just such a gothic. Even, for those of you out there, my iced coffee I'm drinking has all of the slasher figures. Some I like more than others. I am a fan of Ghostface from Scream, but there's a lot of controversy over the new Scream. We don't have to talk about that. I think they should have just stopped where they were. But so Maria, can you just remind us again, like, how are you approaching Poe in your presentation when you were at the conference?
Yeah, sure. I presented about Poe's short story on dueling, practice of dueling, and about the book's called Duello. It's an etiquette book for like honorable ways of dueling, which were very popular in the 18th and 19th century, even in the US, not only in Europe. And yeah, so I've been really interested in Poe's interest in how a sense of mystery could be created by so he's really interested in the mechanism of mysteries, and he calls it like mystification, and that's the title of the short story. But he kind of digs into, for example, like how con artist tricks people on the street, and kind of tricks them into believing in something that is not true. And this story, mystification, is part of his kind of whole project about how mystery could be created, or how something unknowable could be created by certain methodologies or strategies. So I talked about that. I just really liked the code duello, the idea itself. It's so hilarious, how to hold your sword and how to hold your handkerchief or whatever. Yeah, so that's how I kind of talked about Poe.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, like, when you honed in on that. I mean, I'm even thinking of Hamlet and like how far back that dueling with Hamlet and, oh my, is it Horatio who he's dueling? I don't know. I'm not we're not a Shakespeare
I don't
panel
do
right now.
I'm sorry,
But,
I don't do Shakespeare.
It's
I don't
okay.
remember.
It's okay. Everyone out there who is such, I teach Hamlet, but I haven't refreshed my mind on it in a while.
You call
They're probably
yourselves literature
screaming.
scholars.
I know, they're
Ugh,
like, no, maybe it's Laertes. I don't know.
that sounds more right.
Okay, that sounds more right. Okay, well, whoever it is, I'm just mentioning characters now from Hamlet, but like dueling is such a central theme there, and like the poisonous sword that happens with Hamlet.
Yeah,
But I
like Alexander Hamilton in American
Alexander
history. Huge,
Hamilton,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and but like to think about that history and how Poe is using it. I mean, even when we turn to Poe's philosophy of composition, like what he's presenting of, how the art of writing, and it's what I love about Hawthorne too. Like, I always remember his definition of the romance,
Right,
like how
yeah.
it's both real and unreal. And I think he kind of says it's this liminal, like in between space, actual and imagined. I think that's the wording. But back to my comprehensive exams, everyone. But but again, like, this is the way, maybe that idea of what Hawthorne presents about the romance is just what I love about the conference experience. Like, why I'm so happy we're all sitting here is like hearing you describe this and knowing that everyone out there is now like jotting down notes, or they're like, oh, I need to read it from that kind of lens, or, oh, I didn't think about bacteria and Poe stories, or, I'm a Margaret Atwood fan, kind of like Jess's love of Philip K. Dick. I wonder if there's like Handmaid's Tale themes that I can find in Poe. Or, I love the art of dueling. Like, oh, I, never thought like you could do a deep dive, right? These are all deep dives. And I sometimes just wonder, okay, what's next after the presentation? Like, why I'm so happy we're here, because Okay, hold on to that question because we'll be right back. But first, a word from our sponsor. The Ivory Tower Boiler Room is so happy to welcome Broadview Press as our official sponsor. Broadview Press is an independent academic publisher in the humanities that produces high-quality, pedagogically useful books for use in university and college classrooms. They publish in the humanities, mainly in English studies, writing, philosophy, and history. They always publish with an eye towards diversity, so there is a strong list of titles from women, people of color, and other authors from marginalized groups. In the summer of 2022, they launched their new Broadview anthology of American literature, which increases diversity in the classroom because it rethinks the American canon and breathes new life into the American Literary Survey. It's actually been called, quote, the new gold standard in the field. I love using Broadview Press text in my own classroom at Stony Brook University. I can't wait to use the new Anthology of American Literature when I have the opportunity. And for all of you out there, Broadview Press has given us the official code Ivory Tower for 20% off site-wide on broadviewpress.com. Again, that is code Ivory Tower for 20% off.
Hi, it's Mary from True Crime and Academia.
If you're like me, you love personalized merch and you love shopping local. So here is one of my favorite local vendors to buy from. It's Mandy Made It. That's Mandee, Made It. My friend Mandy makes the most incredible personalized crochet goods and decor for your home. Spooky season is coming up. She has some of the coolest Halloween designs. So go follow her on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Mandy Made It. Again, that's Mandee Made It. And place your order with her today.
I always don't want it to end. Like, I want there to be a repository, an archive of sorts. And I'm
there's a little bit of melancholy the last morning of the conference, right? You're eating your last croissant and you're like,
yes,
oh, it's
always a croissant.
Yeah, it's like camp coming to an end in a certain sense, right?
Yeah,
and I've told other people that conferences are like camp for adults.
That's true. That's good analogy.
Yeah,
but
I think we should talk. Oh, sorry.
No, go, Maria.
Yeah. No. Speaking of croissant or coffee at the conference, I think we should talk about how the conference is organized. I mean,
yes.
In terms of space, or like,
yes, please.
Well, what kind of schedule, right? I mean,
no, go for it. Yeah. So how are these days scheduled for everyone, who's never been to a conference or even what a literature conference is? Yeah, the schedule is so important, and it can be very intense.
Yeah.
So
should
like,
I go?
No, go. Yeah. What was,
No,
how would you take us through a day of a conference, Maria?
Okay. It's hard. I mean, I just want to talk about the space.
Okay.
Because, the
okay, I'll take us through the day. I'll take us through the day and I'll end at the space.
A day in the life of Andrew's conference.
Yeah, the day in the life. Well, I would say first, it's like any conference. Like, are you committing to, how much are you committing to attending these panels, right? And panels are like where we presented our papers. And I use paper loosely because like everyone presents in a different way. So I'll say where we just present. And we can talk about how we present because that's another aspect that's changed. And I think especially in our current moment. But okay, so you get the program and it's kind of like a playbill, except we have each day, say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Monday, like, okay, we have our reception at night. Tuesday, we then start the actual day of the conference. And it usually starts at 9 a.m. So it's early. I mean, I always think 9 is early. But then usually there's about 3 back-to-back panels. And and then there's like a lunch break, and then you come back again, and then sometimes there's a dinner at night, but a lot of the times it's just up to you to do what you want at like the late evening. I don't know. Did I explain that? I think that's like a usual day. And maybe there's 2 days of that kind of schedule, and sometimes there's 3 days of that schedule, depending on how, um, you know, intense the conference is, or like how long, like how many people are there. Right. A Modern Language Association conference could be like 3 to 4 days. I think this was 3 days.
It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Thank you. Yeah. And we had like an evening reception to meet. And then we actually had a dinner, which isn't common. And something I loved was that we actually all got to sit in a ballroom. And that's
Yeah.
actually how we all came to be together, because we sat at the same table for dinner.
Yeah, I will
yeah.
add, Andrew, that this was the fanciest and also most expensive conference I've ever done, right? Conferences usually cost you like 150, 200 bucks, and this one was like 350 or 400 or something. But wow, it was a 5-star dinner with a little taste of Amontillado at the end. That was
Yeah.
very special.
And I forget, were we all staying? No, we weren't all staying at the Omni. I mean, I was at the Omni Hotel in Boston. Ashley was there. I think Maria, you were like in an Airbnb. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I was walking with Maria.
I
and
missed that.
we had like an amazing Tex-Mex meal that I will always remember from those margaritas. But
Yeah.
Yeah, my graduate student budget had me in the classiest hostel of Boston.
Oh, okay. See, I was lucky because I did get some money from the university. But if you don't get money from the university, I mean, shout out to the Omni. I loved it. It's a great hotel. They had a good gym too.
It's gorgeous.
But it was, not cheap. It's not a cheap hotel, especially that area of Boston. So it's right in near Back Bay, but it's not Back Bay. It's like
Haymarket, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
right
it's
in
like
downtown.
down to historic Boston. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like where all of the American Revolutionary tours are. We were
Freedom
in
Trail.
Yes, the Freedom Trail. Thank you. But yeah, the space itself. Okay, Maria. So like what did the actual like conference space? We were in the hotel, but we were actually in we were in like the ballroom area.
Yeah, that's true. So at Poe conference, do we use like several stories or just one floor, the big floor? I thought maybe it was just one floor, but there are so many like fancy conference rooms on the floor, and those sessions that Andrew just explained happen like kind of concurrently. So there are so many sessions happening in the same time slot, and there'll be some conflict between which one do you want to go, and you have like several ones in your list, and this Poe and Fungus, this is amazing, and this is Poe and Nebula, I want to go, but sometimes you cannot go both. But some people just kind of stroll around the floor between several rooms and kind of pick what they want. That's one style. Or some people just stay in one room and just hear the whole session. And outside those conference rooms, there'll be like, how do you say, cafe booth? I don't know, like coffee and pastries and cookies and everything. And this Poe conference was the fanciest board I've ever seen at any conference. It was really cool. Croissant and cupcakes and what else? There's so
we had like mini cakes.
Oh no, yeah.
It was delicious. Oh yeah, no.
It was delicious.
The food, the price matched the food. I mean, I will definitely say
Indeed.
that.
Yeah.
And there was also an amazing merchandise room.
Right.
With like all the Poe organizations. Yeah.
I was just gonna I feel like one of the things that we kind of are hinting at a little bit, but not like fully fleshing out, is like the expense of these conferences for like the scholars. And it's like this, like we are as academics, we are expected to participate in conferences. Like this is an important like I mean, once you get a job, I mean, this is part of like promotion, like required for promotion, that you're participating in academic conferences and you know, submitting publications, getting your work actually published and that sort of thing. And sometimes it's paid for. Like this conference for me was mostly, not entirely, but mostly paid for by my university. But that becomes tricky with grad students, because there's not a lot of funding for grad students. And it's still something that grad students are expected to do. And so, you know, this can be like a real problem.
But like you said, it's a networking. It's what gets us in conversation with these scholars.
Yeah.
So,
It's just,
well, no, it's good, Ashley.
It's just really tough to make it happen.
And it's right. We're talking about funding inequity in a way of social class. Like those who have more means as grad students are going to get more benefits of networking. And that's not right. It's not fair. But it's like why spaces like this, in my opinion, or even just like having a longevity after the conference is so important. And I know when we were all having our meals at dinner, like this topic of especially thinking about grad students at the conference, but even though Ashley, you know, is an associate professor,
assistant,
sorry. Assistant. Okay, yeah. For those of you out there, there's a little difference. But an assistant professor, okay, soon to be an associate in like, you know, well, she will be an associate. We're manifesting it. Okay. But I'll have you back on when you have your book, Ashley. Don't worry. No pressure. No pressure. But I think that I was so curious when we like all were giving our opinions on like grad students' presence at this conference, but even like, should there have been a grad student panel? Should there have been like how do we talk to Poe like outside of academia? Like, and that's something that is happening more at other conferences I've been to, which is like bringing in like journalists who are interested in these topics, or even like podcasters or social media people who cover these ideas. And I will say, like, I would have loved to see like more of a public scholar panel, or even just thinking about a mixer. Like it didn't even have to be formal. Like I think we all said, oh, it would have been so nice if there was just like a mixer where people could just like open up about these ideas. So yeah, I don't know. Does anyone want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, sure. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Maria.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I'll just say briefly that there was a rooftop hangout session that I attended, and I got to talk to, I think I don't remember his name, but he was the other scholar who wasn't yet in his 40s plus. Like there were only a handful of younger scholars at this conference. It was very much the old guard. And you know, that makes sense because Poe is very old school and there's people who've devoted his whole life to him. So I think for them, it was more of like getting to see their buddies again, whereas us young folks had the band together, which Andrew's then brought us back together for the podcast. So thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, I want to add on to that. Thank you, Andrew, because I think we just met by luck. I feel like, because you know, there are dinners and also reception, like with drinks, but we never be able to know who's who, you know. Is this a grad student or is this a professor? You know, so I just started talking to Andrew because we were just standing next to each other or something, right, in the same area. But otherwise, I would not be able to spot any scholars in my own stage, I mean, academically. And I think it's really important for us to connect with other PhD students or MA students who are working on our own project. So yeah, I think I'd second that. I thought maybe we could have like grad student breakfast or like breakfast or grad student tea time or something like between sessions, you know. some big conferences have those for the students to connect with each other. So just like preparing one room for grad students and have good pastries and coffee, and then we go,
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm not sure if the three of you know, but I actually put my presentation on. Okay, so for all of you out there, I was talking about the Fall of the House of Usher, which is why I'm like honing in on the Fall of the House of Usher. I love Poe's other stories, especially The Mask of the Red Death. That's actually one of my favorites.
That's a good one.
Um, but I really was interested in how like Freud pathologizes homosexuality. What does that do if we look at Freudian language in The Fall of the House of Usher, like, and actually see the narrator and Roderick almost as narcissistic mirrors of each other? That they're Poe's discussing homosexuality without that concept being around. And like narcissism is a good way to get at that from Freudian language. Okay, so that's what I talked about. But that was like a very short paraphrasing. And I actually put it up on YouTube because we have an archive of videos, but it's really only accessed by, those of us who have this I don't know how you would describe it, website that hosts all the videos. But I got permission. Thank you, Amy. Shout out to Amy out there. She was amazing as one of the co-organizers, and let me put it on YouTube, which is not common from a conference to actually be able to put out your presentation. But I think something like that is actually a really good model. And I'm like, oh, maybe in a way, conference presentations can eventually be like TED Talks, where they exist, like they're filmed and then they eventually can exist for the public on YouTube. And I don't know, do you think there's concern from the we call them the old guard, but do you think there's concern from like having that much exposure of presentations or having like that much available to the public? Do you think there's hesitations around that? And now, a message from the Gay and Lesbian Review.
Hello, listeners. This is Stephen Hemrick, the publisher of the G&LR, here with a special offer just for you. For those of you who aren't familiar with the G&LR, let me provide a little background. The GLR is a bi-monthly magazine of history, culture, and politics that publishes essays in a wide range of disciplines, as well as a slew of reviews of books, plays, and movies, and a number of special features such as artists' profiles and the popular art memo column. Each issue brings you consistently intelligent, lively, thought-provoking articles focused on a unifying theme and brings together the leading minds on the topic. You won't find a lot about the latest dating fads or fashion trends, though you might find articles about online dating as a social phenomenon or the gay influence on 20th century fashion. For example, the theme of the current issue is Queens and Kings, and it features an article by Andrew Holleran about Truman Capote's relationships with glamorous women, the women he called his swans. Now for the special offer. When you subscribe, you'll receive a free copy with any print or digital subscription. That's 7 issues instead of 6. Visit glreview.org. That's glreview.org. Click subscribe and enter promo code ITBR for your free issue. And as an added bonus, you'll receive online access to all archived issues of the magazine.
Your brain needs support, and new Ollie Brainy Chews are a delightful way to take care of your cognitive health. Made with scientifically backed ingredients like Thai ginger, L-theanine, and caffeine, Brainy Chews support healthy brain function and help you find your focus, stay chill, or get energized. Be kind to your mind and get these nootropic chews at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
I think it's just not how it's been done. It's more like this is not what we do. And I mean, I don't know if there's some I mean, like it's like journal articles, right, that are behind a firewall and cost like, $25,000 to have a subscription from your library, right? So no individual can ever have that. And in those cases, these journals are the ones to benefit from that kind of like hoarding of resources, which is what I'm going to call that. But I love what you're saying, that like for conferences, this is not published work. Nobody owns it yet. So it seems like giving young scholars and older scholars that kind of publicity, assuming it went well, it just seems like that is a necessary evolution of conferences. And if the old guard had any problem with it, I think it would just be a matter of like tradition, not I don't know that there's like a good reason not to publish those online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll second Ashley there, just because I've seen a lot of conferences go virtual, right, with the pandemic. And so now that we have all this technology fully integrated, it's much easier to get all those things online. That being said, I feel like my paper delivery was still kind of rough, so I don't think I would want it to live on YouTube. I'm still working on that paper, but I totally
agree with you. Like when I do conference papers, this is sort of like going back to something earlier that Andrew said.
Oh yeah,
like,
how do we deliver them?
I legit like type it out and I read it because my memory's terrible. And if you put me on the spot, I will forget like every smart thing I ever knew, like leaves my brain. And so I write it out and I read it, and it's not necessarily great delivery, but I'm like, okay, I can just like write on the content. Like as long as
that's a traditional, but like that is a way that a lot of literary papers are delivered, is literally having a paper, almost like, right, you're working from what you're going to revise, because eventually, and I'll ask each of you, like, where do you think what you presented on, does it have a future? And it doesn't have to, but like, where has it kind of entered into another phase of your work? But right, so Ashley read it fully, like the paper. I have an outline I work from, and I always do this now, where I have like my PowerPoint, and then I have notes of my PowerPoint to lead me in bulleted sections. I have quotes pulled out. I think a few of you are at my presentation, but like I like to address the audience a lot. But I also have a background in theater, which helps. But yeah, so I don't memorize my whole paper. I just, I go from my outline. And then I forget, Maria and Jess, what did you both do for your presentation when you delivered it?
I use slides, PowerPoint slides, but I agree with Ashley. I write up everything. I mean, I might not look at it, but it's really helpful to know that I have everything there. So, but which means I need to practice, right? Rehearse before actually presenting, because otherwise I'll just look so, I don't know, flat or like boring just reading aloud. So it's a lot of preparation, I think,
Yes.
just to go up there and talk to all the experts. Very intimidating, and we cannot expect what kind of questions from what direction, coming from who, what scholars, and among them there'll be like the scholars, like very famous, very established, or you're just fan of, and whose books you just read so many times and loved it, and you feel really nervous, right? Yeah.
Oh, actually, well, just for like, because we have a lot of theater listeners out there, it would kind of be like we're all performing a Broadway musical that's not premiered yet, and everyone in the audience is all Broadway actors and actresses. Like, which happens, but right, you're like, oh my goodness, like, I'm performing I'm performing for my peers. And I think, yeah, that does up the ante, right? And I kind of wonder if the audience was like strangers, would we feel like, I've delivered lectures at libraries, and it's a different energy, because I'm like, oh, they are just eager to learn about what is the fall of the House of Usher? Because like you're assuming that they don't have as much, closer reading analysis.
Yeah,
But
I think it's harder, Andrew, to deliver at a conference like the Poe conference, because I've presented at Worldcon to an absolutely, which is the World Science Fiction Convention, and it was
Ooh.
like 250 people or something in the room talking about Philip K.
Mm.
Dick, and
Wow.
the energy is just electric in there. And the Poe conference, I think I had like 6 people in my audience, and you can just feel like
Yeah,
then they're
yeah.
all dialed into you, and like some of them are super Poe experts, and it's, man, I'm gonna quote from the wrong biography. I'm using Quinn instead of Hobson, and oh no, Hobson's in and Quinn is out, and like I don't know the meta of the current Poe scholarship, so it's more intimidating.
Well, you're right. Yeah, the number of the audience. Sometimes I actually think when there's such a large audience, it is more calming because of you have more points to focus and like people's reactions. Also, I have to say the audience was wearing masks when we were presenting. We weren't. Well, you could choose if you were or not. I wasn't wearing a mask when I presented, but like everyone in the audience was wearing a mask. And yeah, that can also be tough to judge. How you're like kind of looking at eyes and just hoping, okay, I hope this is registering with enthusiasm. But okay, as we're like wrapping up, which I told this group when I hit the record button, it goes so fast. But I think, okay, we've kind of hit the present. Oh, Jess, how do you deliver your presentations? Do you read like the full
Um,
paper or?
Yeah, I prefer to use PowerPoints when I can. Like I remember you had your PowerPoint. I could see Vincent Price right in the Fall of the House Usher, and that was like super helpful for me for your talk. And so I usually try to do that. But for this conference, I had learned that Poe famously wrote on really long scrolls, and then he would like
Oh yeah.
dramatically furl out the scroll before he read. And so I took my paper and I printed it out and I taped it all together so I could have
Yes.
a big long scroll. And nobody said anything. I think no, I don't know if anyone else knew that. They just looked at me like I was kind of, you know, a nut job, and I think I got a little bit more Poe in me because of that. So
No, Jess definitely had a flair when he delivered his. I was there in the audience, and like I just remember the smack when all the papers fell onto the like literally the whole scroll. Was unraveling, and I loved it. No, it was
thank you,
great.
Andrew.
It was a
I
good performance.
Someone noticed. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I know. I notice all performance aspects. I love, high performance. Okay, and I like campiness, and that was campy, which was fun. But again, I think I would say it was a conference where there were so many different styles, in my opinion, of how people
Mm.
delivered presentations. And I remember like it was a very encouraging Q&A. Like never, because sometimes I think there's a fear of like the zingers of like I got you. Um, you know, like I don't remember that happening because I do think, it's so self-selecting on who wants to be there. And so there's an excitement in that. And there are people I still keep in touch with, you know, those gathered here, but also others who I still talk to. And I think you are part of that community. So that's something that I don't feel like when I go to the MLA. Oh, we can get into that in another because it's tough.
Yeah,
When you have like
very cordial group of
yeah,
people. Very
yeah.
friendly.
Yes.
I think when you have more than like 500, it's, you don't have dinners. You don't even have like tea times. So, but I think to end, I know Jess wanted to do some hot takes. But I think I'll go there. And I think because of Poe, we kind of have to get a little spooky and atmospheric in our hot takes. So I guess just like what are you left with in terms of like, will you go to the Poe conference again when it's offered? I guess that's our academic hot take. We are literary academics here, so our hot takes are not going to be as we could try to do zingers, but so that's, are you going to go again? And also, what do you hope to get out of the Poe conference or your next conference that might not have existed in our experience? Okay, so I've laid out the hot takes. I think I'll go with Jess because this was his idea to do hot takes.
Okay. I'll do my hot take. One of your questions, Andrew, that you asked us was something about like what do you wish had happened afterwards? And I wrote down, I wish there was like a turn-in box where I could just turn in my paper like it was a classroom and be like, okay, can this go to a Poe journal now? And I guess my hot take is I realize that specifically, I think Poe scholars and maybe other scholars are like this with one author scholars. There's a certain kind of raw aspect to them. And in my paper, I'm kind of critical of Poe. I'm like, listen, Poe was, he did a lot of things that were kind of questionable, not Longfellow War notwithstanding, right? And so I kind of realized that I am not going to be able to publish my paper in any kind of a Poe journal. Like maybe a media studies journal might take it or a feminist studies journal might take it. But that was my hot take because I realized that my paper is not terribly Poe friendly.
Yeah. Well, and I see this with Whitman conferences. Like I've gone to a week-long Whitman conference twice, and it's a full week of all-day seminars, which is amazing. But at the same time, there is almost like cheering for your football team, like the Poe team, the Whitman team. But it's true. Like let's put cracks. Like that's not the right phrase. That's not the right turn of phrase. Let's poke holes into these figures. Like there are flaws, and I think we should not just see them as martyrs. And I agree. Yeah. Okay. Interesting, Jess. I like that. And I think a lot of those who are listening who are Poe fans out there would agree with us, I would assume. But hey, if you want to send any negative mail, please send it to Jess
Send it on
Flarity's
over.
account. Thank you.
Yeah, send it over.
Okay. Who's ready for their hot take? I'm still forming mine.
I don't know that I have like a hot take. But would I go again? Sure. It was really fun. And I met cool people. And I will say I wish there had been more, like, to sort some of your other points. Like I wish there had been a little bit more mentoring for young scholars. Like, the old guard was like, they've known each other their whole lives, and so they're there to see each other because they're buddies. Bring us along with you because we're the future of the scholarship. So yeah, like I would go again if it was convenient. Like a friend of mine roped me into doing this and being on the panel, and so that's like how I ended up there in the first place. But I would probably have to be like roped in again and like have somebody like tell me this is the panel that you will present on and now make a paper. And I don't know, is that like what I feel like?
No, that's good. Anything you want to offer, Ashley? I'm not gonna, but yeah, I agree. The mentoring would have been a more, even if we had like been paired with those, like say I had been paired with queer Poe scholars and they were there and I had like a tea time. I keep saying tea. It's like I have high tea all the time. I don't, everyone. But like a coffee time. And like we actually got to sit down, like who was also doing environmental work, who also was like reaching outside of Poe to other 20th century authors. Jess could have been paired up with Maria and like more of those like historical analyses. Yeah, that's an interesting idea, like a mentor program. I love it, Ashley. How about, you, Maria? Is there something like the takeaway you had about if you ever, went back again that you would want to see?
It's a great question, and I'm the dream situation at the conference would be this editor from the great journal or like great publisher comes up to me and say, hey, I listened to your presentation and I think you're a genius and I'll publish anything you write, so here's the $5 million in contract.
I love that.
That's
idea.
My dream situation. Right?
Beautiful.
That sounds good.
Beautiful.
I'll take a $5 million deal for writing.
Yeah.
For books.
So I'm like, well, it didn't happen, but maybe in the future.
Like the next step for publishing, because like that was my, like where I'm heading with this work, because it's not my dissertation. It's not going to end up in a book that I work on, which I want to have my dissertation go more to a public audience, like, not just a university. I like university presses, but I like some kind of imprint that's more public facing. But I really would have loved I know there was like a publishing panel, which is good, but I think if we could have had more, if there could be more times to meet, like, and not just like networking over food. It's kind of like what Ashley's saying about mentoring. Like if there had been like open hours, I don't know exactly how to do it, but like more sit down opportunities. That's, not like you're in an office, but like more times to just like maybe make an appointment with someone who's the, editor in chief of Poe Studies. Like that would have been wonderful to just be like, well, I'm trying to pitch this. How shall I go about this? Because there are ways, like sometimes you send your paper to those who have published there before and they give you tips. It's like learning these insider secrets.
Yeah,
And
I will
yeah.
say, Andrew, I probably got the best insider secrets for this conference on the bus ride to Providence, Rhode Island, because we were all stuck on the bus together and there was nothing to distract us. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the Athenaeum in Providence. Such a cool library. Please go check it out.
Oh, I heard that was amazing. Oh, I got to do that next time. Also, there was an amazing walking tour. Oh my, the co-organizer of the conference. I'm drawing a blank, but I will figure it out.
Maybe related to that, earlier you asked Andrew,
yeah.
what do you think the general public hears when you say you're going to a literary conference?
Yes. What
right?
do you think
I
they
really
hear?
love that. I really love the question because in my mind, maybe people would think we are going to like literary festivals, where we meet really cool authors and get autographs and get to talk to them. Or I thought maybe like Comic-Con or Renaissance Fair, where we show up and dressed up in really cool costumes and like, hey, I'm Edgar Allan Poe, or like, hey, I'm Mr. Darcy, or like, those. It would be cool. It would be fun. Or like Emily Dickinson or something like that.
Well, yeah, no, you're right. So the walking tour was organized by Paul Lewis. So shout out to Paul. But yeah, Maria, kind of like Comic-Con. I agree. I think a lot of people think creative writing, and that does happen with creative writers, where like you can meet Margaret Atwood, you can meet let me see, others. Gillian Flynn. I don't know. I'm just gonna like throw out names now. But you can meet Celia Lasky, who's been on this podcast. I should like only use people I've interviewed. But yeah, those are awesome opportunities. And in a way, you know what? That would be a really cool thing to see is I don't think we have opportunities like that in academic conferences, like where you just meet the writers and like I don't know if we want to take selfies with them. But I would say like my takeaway, is I kind of wish there was more, I don't want to call it like a red carpet, but if there was a way to like kind of combine that, what happens in more like entertainment spaces. Like sometimes I wish, can there be like a room for interviews? Like, do they have someone they're going to like, do they have a podcaster who's going to share out the interviews? Like maybe people can have sit down panels and they're recorded and there's like the audio goes out on some channel that the conference wants to collaborate with. Like those kinds of opportunities could be cool. And I also think like building social media around the conference, like I know a few of us, we were doing a lot to share on Twitter, but it's like, someone has to manage that. And it would be great to keep that as an archive, because then if you keep using this hashtag, anytime you go on Instagram or Twitter, it's now saved. Like it's all there. So like those opportunities I would love to see, because again, it's not, in my opinion, it shouldn't be a one and done. Like this is something that we should all now use, even when we teach these texts. Like I can't think of The Fall of the House of Usher now without thinking of fungi and bacteria and Ashley's work. Like that to me is what a conference is about, is learning these different lenses, right? Like even with, like now when I see dueling, I'm like, oh, Maria's really into the history of dueling. Or, with Philip K. Dick, that's not an author who's really on my radar, but now I'm open to it. So, wow, we covered a lot. I feel like everyone out there, whether you're consider yourself in academia or just a gothic lover of Poe, or you're from one of these organizations, I think there was something for everyone, and that was why it was great to bring this to you all. And, hopefully maybe some of our suggestions we eventually see. And I know each of us would be happy to, think through that. Especially, I'm still thinking about this mentoring. I think you're onto something, Ashley, about this mentoring idea.
Hashtag Poe Mentors 2023.
Yes, hashtag Poe Mentors 23. Oh my, I love it. Okay, well, hopefully I will see the three of you somewhere again in person. Maybe it will be at a Poe conference. Maybe we'll have a panel about, bringing our work to the public humanities panel. I'll pitch it.
How to make a podcast. Ooh.
Oh, is that what it would be called? The podcast?
Sorry. I had to do it. I'm sorry.
I like it. Oh my gosh. I'm sure, we could have like a field day about wordplay with Poe. But Edgar Allan podcast. I don't know. We'll think about that one.
Your next project, Andrew.
I don't know. Let's see. What's the $? That's where I am right now. We have to make boundaries in our lives, everyone. And that's another thing about getting paid for your work. But that's a whole, especially with academic
Another
writing.
episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting paid for academic writing, an important tutorial. Okay, well, thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Maria. This is wonderful. I'm so glad that we did this. Yeah.
Me too. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Ivory Tower, Boiler Room.
It's great for you to be here. Can't wait for you all to be back again. You know what? We have a lot to continue with academia. So I'm sure, we'll bring this to the public in another season. But yeah, please reach out to, look at Ashley, Jess, and Maria. I have all of their Instagram or Twitter or whatever they've provided in the show notes. Connect to them. Make sure you see what they're up to, because it's a lot of exciting work. And yeah, happy fall, everyone.
Happy fall.
Now that is how you ring in the Halloween season, everyone. This is not the only Edgar Allan Poe episode. I have another one coming out soon. Let's just say we're going to be spicing Poe up a little with some homoerotic discussion. I'll leave you on a teaser. That's all I'm going to say about that. So get ready. And just to remind you all, if you want to see the unedited video of this episode of The Haunting of Edgar Allan Poe and all of our videos, all of our episodes, our audio episodes, they're also videos. So go to our Patreon, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Join at $5 a month and you get all of our video episodes. You also get bonus episodes, which include Mary. She has True Crime and Academia episodes that are deep dives that are only on Patreon, like JonBenet Ramsey and the Charles Lindbergh baby kidnapping episode. She just did Slender Man for all of you Slender Man Halloween fans. She actually looks into the real case. So again, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. Join at the price of an iced coffee. And we really appreciate it. We love you all there on Patreon. And we also interact with you all on Patreon. So also join our social media and DM us. We love your DMs. Please rate and review the podcast on Apple. Give us a rating on Spotify. We really appreciate that as well. It helps us with the algorithm on podcasts, placing on the charts. So thank you all for doing that. Also, thank you to the fall interns who are amazing here from Stony Brook University. We really appreciate you all. And thanks to Mary. Thanks to Kim. I have such an amazing team. So I also can't wait to see some of you at the Halloween party, some of you at the Real Housewives trivia night. It's just all these events. I can't wait to see what else happens. Who knows? Maybe the Ivory Tower Boiler Room will be hosting a gay singles night. I don't know. Just saying. Well, I'll definitely attend that event. Okay. Bye, everyone, and enjoy the spooky season.